Imagine boarding a flight, excited for the journey ahead, only to witness an incident that changes everything. Today's story follows a young boy, full of hope, who steps onto a plane expecting a routine trip, but quickly becomes the center of unexpected drama. A tense confrontation with a flight attendant leads to a shocking moment when the boy is ordered off the aircraft. But what happens next will leave you speechless. In just 7 minutes, this boy finds a way to turn the tables in a way no one saw coming. This isn't just a story about conflict, it's about resilience, justice, and how a single act can ripple through an entire situation. As passengers watch the events unfold, what began as an unfair dismissal became a moment of unexpected triumph. Stay tuned to discover how this remarkable boy's quick thinking and determination left everyone, including the flight attendant, in disbelief. This is a real-life story you won't forget. The boy, about 12 years old, had been traveling alone, clutching a small backpack and a boarding pass with trembling hands. He'd boarded the plane quietly, just like any other passenger, and had politely taken his assigned seat near the back. Passengers nearby smiled at him, some even admiring his independence. But things quickly took a turn when the flight attendant approached. At first, it seemed like a routine check. She scanned the boy's ticket and asked a few questions. Then her tone shifted. Her voice grew sharp as she accused him of being in the wrong seat, despite the boy showing his valid boarding pass. People around started whispering, sensing something wasn't right. The boy tried to explain, his voice steady but nervous, yet the attendant refused to listen. Moments later, the unthinkable happened. She ordered him off the plane, claiming there was an issue with his ticket. Stunned passengers watched as he stood, his face a mix of shock and determination, and quietly walked back down the aisle. Something about his calm demeanor hinted that this wasn't the end. As the boy stepped off the plane, his mind was racing. He replayed the flight attendant's words, trying to understand what had just happened. It didn't make sense. His ticket was valid, his seat was correct, and he followed every instruction. Standing in the terminal, surrounded by travelers rushing past, he felt a mix of embarrassment and anger bubbling inside him. Meanwhile, on the plane, whispers filled the cabin. Passengers exchanged uneasy glances, quietly questioning the flight attendant's actions. A woman seated nearby had seen the boy's ticket and knew he hadn't done anything wrong. Another passenger, a father traveling with his own son, shook his head in disbelief. Yet no one dared to speak up. Back in the terminal, the boy took a deep breath and pulled out his phone. He wasn't going to let this go. A quick call to his guardian explained the situation, and soon he was speaking with someone in authority. His calm but firm words carried weight. Whatever was happening, he was determined to stand up for himself, and the story was far from over. The boy's call set things in motion. Within minutes, a gate agent arrived, concerned and confused by the situation. The boy calmly explained everything, showing his ticket again and recounting what had happened. His composure surprised the agent, who immediately began making calls. Nearby travelers paused to watch, their curiosity growing. Back on the plane, tension was rising. The whispers among passengers grew louder, and some began questioning the flight attendant directly. Why was the boy removed? A woman asked firmly. The attendant's responses were vague and defensive, but her confidence seemed to waver under the scrutiny. Outside, the gate area was buzzing. A senior airline official had now joined the conversation with the boy, reviewing the ticket and confirming it was perfectly valid. The boy's calm persistence was paying off, but the situation was far from over. As the official approached the plane, the atmosphere shifted. Passengers sensed that something was about to happen. The boy, standing tall despite the unfairness he'd faced, followed closely behind, his quiet determination lighting a spark of anticipation among the crowd. Just as the airline official prepared to reboard the plane with the boy, the flight attendant stepped out onto the jet bridge. Her expression was tense, and she seemed taken aback to see them waiting. She quickly tried to justify her actions, claiming the boy's ticket was flagged, but the official's sharp tone cut her off. "There's no issue with this ticket. You had every right to be on that flight," they stated firmly. The attendant's face paled as the passengers inside watched through the windows. But before anyone could process what was happening, the gate agent's radio crackled with unexpected news. There was another passenger on board, a man in first class, who had been creating trouble earlier. Apparently, he complained loudly about kids flying alone and insisted they didn't belong on flights like this. Suddenly, things started to make sense. The boy listened quietly, but his sharp eyes caught the flight attendant's reaction. A flicker of guilt crossed her face. Had she been trying to appease the man by targeting him? The stakes had just risen, and the truth was closer than ever. The airline official, now fully aware of the situation, walked the boy back onto the plane. Passengers turned to watch as the official addressed the flight attendant in front of everyone. "This passenger is reinstated to his original seat," they announced, their voice firm. The flight attendant, visibly flustered, nodded but avoided meeting anyone's gaze. The boy calmly walked down the aisle, his head held high. He took his seat as passengers murmured their support, some even clapping softly. But just as things seemed settled, the first-class passenger who had complained earlier stood up. "This is ridiculous," he shouted, his face red with anger. "Kids like him shouldn't even be allowed on planes." The official turned sharply. "Sir, your behavior has been noted. We don't tolerate discrimination or hostility toward any passenger." In a dramatic turn, they informed the man he was being removed from the flight. Stunned silence filled the cabin as he reluctantly gathered his belongings and left under the watchful eyes of everyone. The boy, though quiet, couldn't hide a small, satisfied smile. Justice had been served, and the unexpected twist left the entire flight with a story they'd never forget. As the plane finally prepared for takeoff, a calm settled over the cabin. The boy glanced out the window, reflecting on everything that had happened. Despite the rocky start, he felt a sense of pride for standing up for himself and letting the truth come to light. Passengers around him offered kind smiles and encouraging words. One woman leaned over, whispering, "You handled that better than most adults would." The boy nodded politely, his quiet determination earning him respect from everyone who witnessed the ordeal. Meanwhile, the airline official made their way back to the terminal, ensuring every detail of the incident was documented. The airline promised to investigate further and hold those responsible accountable. It was clear that changes would be made to prevent situations like this in the future. As the plane lifted off, the boy leaned back in his seat, finally able to relax. He knew this wasn't just about one flight. It was a reminder of the importance of fairness and courage, even in the most unexpected moments.